What's up, guys? We're going to kick off Chapter 7 here, talking about pairs of angles. So what you're going to learn in 7.1 is to identify types of angles and to find angle measure using the relationship between angles. And then just a heads up for this particular section, there is going to be a lot of vocab. So make sure that you have space in your notebook and that you're ready to write these things down. Let's get going. But before that, our daily funny. What do we want? Better memory. When do we want it? What? That's funny. Okay, so 7.1 vocabulary. Write this down, pause, and copy it all. Vertical angles are formed by two intersecting lines and are opposite each other. Congruent angles have the same measure. So vertical angles are congruent. Okay? They are congruent, which means they have the same measure. This should have been highlighted for you. That's a vocab word as well. So congruent angles have the same measure. So angle 1 and angle 3 have the same measure. They are congruent to one another. Angle 2 and angle 4 are congruent. They are across from each other while two lines intersect, and that forms those. So make sure you have that copied down because I will be using these terms, and if I say vertical angles, you need to be aware of what it is that I'm talking about. Another vocab word, adjacent angles, have a common vertex and a common side, but no common interior points. Okay, so in other words, it's angles that are next to each other. So same vertex, I have this common side right here, but I have this angle and this angle. They're just next to each other. They share a single ray is the word that we would use for that. All right, so how can we use these things? It says name a pair of adjacent angles and a pair of vertical angles in the photo. Find the measurement of JBT. So the first thing that we want to find are adjacent angles. And the way you write this is the angle sign in math. So adjacent angles, I could start here with this DBJ. So I'd say angle DBJ. And then the angle that's going to be adjacent to that, I could do a couple. There's this side and there's this side. I'm going to do over here. So I got JBT. So angle JBT. And again, the reason those are adjacent is because they share this common side right here. And they share a vertex of B. All right, and then it also says find a pair of vertical angles. So, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Let's pick this one. How about angle DBY? And if I'm looking at DBY, the angle that's going to be vertical to that is going to be the one that's directly across from it. So that's going to be angle JBT. All right, then it says find the angle, find the measure. That's what the little m is. Find the measure of JBT. Well, JBT is right here. And the angle that's directly across from it is 80 degrees. Those are vertical angles. And as in the definition, we know that vertical angles are congruent. So what that means is that if this is 80, then this must be 80. All right, they have the same measure. So if that's 80, then the measurement of JBT is also 80 degrees. All right, so that's how you'd answer this question. There's three parts, so make sure that you're reading the question to make sure that you're answering all parts of the question. Here's one for you to try. Go ahead and pause. The answer will be up in 3, 2, 1. All right, here you go. These are just a couple of examples. You may not have exactly the same angles, and that's fine, but I have DBY is adjacent to YBT because they're next to each other. And DBJ is vertical to YBT because they are directly across from one another. All right, move our vocab, so make sure you pause and write this down. It says, if the sum of the measures of two angles is 180 degrees, the angles are what's called supplementary. If the sum of the measures of two angles is 90 degrees, the angles are complementary. Now, how do you remember the difference between these? Well, one way that I did this is C and then S are in alphabetical order. If 90 and 180 would be in numerical order, so they line up with one another. Complementary is 90, supplementary is 180. That's just a little trick of the trade that I kind of figured out over the years. It says in the diagram below, angle C right here and angle WYZ are both supplements of XYZ. So this angle and this angle are supplementary to this angle. C and VSR are complements of this. The reason they're complements is 75 plus 15 equals 90. And then over here, 105 plus 75 equals 180. That's what makes this supplementary, and that's what makes this complementary. All right, so we could use that information. It says finding supplementary angle. Suppose the measure of angle BCD is 121. Find the measure of its supplement. This is super simple, people. You subtract 121 from 180 because whatever that other angle is, when I add it to 121, it must equal 180. All right, so that's going to be 159. Really, really simple. Just subtract it from 180. Whoops, not 159, just 59. My apologies. So we would say the degree measure of X is 59 degrees. All right, you try. Answer will be up in 3, 2, 1. All right, so the angle measure of a supplement to 47 would have to be 133. Again, super simple here. This should be a layup for you all. Okay, perpendicular lines. Pause and copy this down. Perpendicular lines are two lines that intersect to form a right angle. Recall that a right angle has a measure of 90 degrees. That's going to be very important that you remember that. Here's how this plays out. It says, finding angle measures in the diagram at the right. The measure of angle 5 right here is 58 degrees. Anytime I have these kind of problems and it's not written on here, I go ahead and just write it out into the measure so I know it. It says, find the measures of angle 1 and 2. Well, notice here that this little red box or purple box, that means that this is a 90 degree angle, which means that angle 5 and angle 1 are complementary. Which means that if I add this angle measure to this angle measure, it better equal 90 degrees. So to find angle 1, I could subtract 58 from 90. 58 from 90 is 32. So the measure of angle 1 is 32 degrees. And it says find the measure of angle 2. Well, angle 2 is vertical to angle 1. Notice that this line continues through and this line continues through. So this needs to be 32. Don't just write it on the diagram, though. You need to write it out here. So I'm going to say the measure of angle 1 is equal to 32. And the measure of angle 2 is equal to 32. And this is how you need to write this out with that little m. That m means the measure of that angle. All right, so here's one for you to try. Go ahead and pause. The answer will be up in 3, 2, 1. All right, here's what I got. So I filled in this stuff from the prior problem that you should already have. To find the measure of angle 3, notice that it is vertical here to angle 5 because it's made up of this and it's made up of this. So if angle 5 is 58, then angle 3 is 58. Angle 4 right here is going to be along this straight line. So there's a couple ways you can look at this. It's going to be along this straight line, which means it is supplementary to this angle. If it's supplementary to this angle, then it must be 180 minus this angle, which is 180 minus 90 leaves you with 90. Or you could say that these two angles are also supplementary and then it's vertical to that. There's multiple ways to find that. Probably the supplementary angle approach is the most straightforward of all of them. That's it for today. So a pretty short lesson. I hope you took good notes. I'll see you in class.